The most elite universities in the world, places like MIT, Stanford, and Oxford, quietly do the opposite. Before they teach students something new, they make them forget first. That sounds insane. Why would the smartest schools on earth deliberately train students to erase knowledge? Because most of what you know is actually the biggest obstacle to learning. And once you understand why, you'll never approach learning the same way again. Chapter 1. The dangerous illusion of knowledge. Most people don't struggle to learn because they're stupid. They struggle because they think they already understand things. Psychologists call this the illusion of competence. You recognize information, so you believe you know it. But recognition is not understanding, it's familiarity. Robert Bjork, a cognitive psychologist at UCLA, discovered something disturbing. Students who repeatedly reread material feel more confident about their knowledge. But when tested, they perform worse than students who struggle. Confidence goes up. Performance goes down. Your brain mistakes recognition for mastery. Elite universities know this, so they do something brutal. They destroy your confidence first. In many top physics programs, the first lecture begins with a question that most students answer incorrectly. Not beginners, top students. Straight A students, Olympiad winners. They still get it wrong. Why? Because they walk in with pre-existing mental models. And those models are often wrong. This phenomenon even has a name. It's called misconception interference. Your brain clings to old explanations like a bad operating system. New knowledge can't install properly. So professors force students to confront something uncomfortable. They make them realize they don't understand nearly as much as they thought. Once that illusion breaks, real learning can begin. But here's the problem though. Even when people realize they're wrong, they still cling to old ideas. Your brain hates deleting information, which brings us to the second reason elite schools teach students to forget first. Chapter 2. Unlearning is harder than learning. Your brain isn't a blank hard drive. It's more like a messy attic. Boxes everywhere. Old files stacked on top of new ones. When new information arrives, it doesn't replace old knowledge. It gets layered on top. Sometimes those layers conflict, and when they do, your brain gets confused. A famous experiment at the University of Chicago demonstrated this perfectly. Students were asked a simple physics question. If you drop a bowling ball and a tennis ball from the same height, which hits the ground first? Most people say the bowling ball. Feels obvious. Heavier objects fall faster. Except that's wrong. Galileo disproved it in the 1600s, but the belief still survives. Why? Because everyday experience seems to confirm it. Your brain builds shortcuts called intuitive models. They're useful, but often inaccurate. When professors teach real physics, students must first erase those intuitive models. Otherwise, they keep applying incorrect logic. The same thing happens in economics, in psychology, in medicine. Take medical school. First-year students arrive with tons of biological knowledge, but much of it is fragmented, incomplete, or oversimplified. So professors begin by dismantling it. One medical instructor famously told his class, "Half of what you learned in pre-med is wrong." The problem is we don't know which half. Brutal, but necessary. Learning isn't just addition, it's subtraction. You have to remove faulty frameworks before installing better ones. Think of it like software. If your computer has corrupted files, installing new programs won't fix it. You must uninstall the broken system first. Your brain works the same way. But here's where it gets interesting. Elite universities don't just break old knowledge. They replace it with something stronger. Chapter 3. The reconstruction method. Once the illusion of knowledge is destroyed, students must rebuild understanding from scratch. This method is sometimes called conceptual reconstruction. Instead of memorizing facts, students reconstruct ideas step by step. Physicist Eric Mazur at Harvard revolutionized teaching with something called peer instruction. Instead of lecturing for an hour, he gives students conceptual questions. Simple questions, but tricky. Students answer individually. Most get them wrong. Then they debate with classmates, argue, defend their reasoning, challenge assumptions. And something remarkable happens. Students begin correcting each other's misconceptions. Mazur found that after just a few minutes of discussion, correct responses skyrocketed. Why? Because debate forces you to confront faulty reasoning. Your brain has to rebuild the concept logically. That reconstruction process is what creates deep understanding. Passive listening doesn't do that. You can sit through lectures for hours. Your brain feels productive, but almost nothing sticks. Active reconstruction is different. When you struggle to explain an idea, your brain reorganizes the information. Connections strengthen, weak spots become visible, and real learning finally happens. This principle appears everywhere. Law schools use it through the Socratic method. Professors constantly challenge students. Why? What assumption are you making? What happens if the facts change? It's not comfortable. Students stumble. They hesitate. Sometimes they feel embarrassed. But that's exactly the point. The discomfort forces mental restructuring. Your brain rewires itself. And suddenly, the concept makes sense in a way memorization never could. 2 chapters down. But here's the thing though. Even if you break old knowledge and rebuild it, there's still a major problem. Your brain forgets everything, fast. So elite universities add one more brutal training method. Chapter 4, Desirable Difficulty. Most people think learning should feel smooth, easy, comfortable. If studying feels hard, they assume something is wrong. Wrong. Difficulty is exactly what makes learning stick. Psychologist Robert Bjork calls this desirable difficulty. The idea is simple. When learning requires effort, your brain marks the information as important. Struggle triggers stronger memory encoding. That's why elite universities deliberately make learning harder, not easier. Instead of giving students clear summaries, they give messy problems, incomplete information, confusing scenarios. Students must wrestle with the material. Think about math classes. Weak courses show step-by-step examples. Students follow along. Everything seems obvious. Then exam day arrives. Total confusion. Why? Because students never actually practice thinking. They practice copying. Top universities do the opposite. They throw students into complex problems immediately. No roadmap, just principles. Figure it out. At first, students panic. But eventually their brains adapt. Neural pathways strengthen. Problem-solving ability explodes. This is the same principle used in military training. Special forces don't practice under perfect conditions. They train under chaos, noise, fatigue, stress. Because if you can perform under difficulty, real situations become easier. Learning works the same way. Easy study creates fragile knowledge. Hard study creates durable knowledge. Which leads to another strange habit among elite learners. They deliberately forget. Yes, forget strategically. Chapter 5, Strategic Forgetting. Your brain cannot store everything. It wasn't designed to. If it tried, you'd drown in useless information. So the brain constantly deletes data. This process is called memory pruning. Most people fight it. They highlight everything, take endless notes, save hundreds of articles. Their brains become cluttered. Elite learners do the opposite. They keep very little, but understand it deeply. A study at Columbia University discovered something fascinating. When people know information is easily accessible online, their brains store it less. This is called the Google effect. Why memorize something you can search instantly? But elite students hack this principle. They force their brains to compress knowledge. Instead of memorizing entire textbooks, they extract core frameworks, principles, mental models. Think about how surgeons remember thousands of procedures. They don't memorize every detail separately. They compress information into patterns. Diagnostic scripts, treatment algorithms. 100 facts become one structured concept. Your brain loves compression. It's easier to store one organized framework than dozens of loose facts. This is why elite universities constantly push students to summarize ideas. Explain concepts simply. Reduce complexity. If you can't compress knowledge, you don't truly understand it. And if you don't understand it, your brain deletes it. Strategic forgetting clears space for stronger ideas. Weak knowledge fades, strong knowledge remains. But here's the problem though. Most people never reach this stage because they never break the illusion of competence in the first place. They keep stacking information on top of weak foundations. Eventually, the structure collapses, which is why elite universities teach one final principle. Chapter 6, Thinking, Not Memorizing. At the highest levels of education, memorization becomes almost useless. The real skill is thinking, connecting ideas, solving problems, creating new knowledge. That's why exams at top universities often look strange. Instead of asking students to repeat facts, they present new situations, novel scenarios, problems never seen before. Why? Because real expertise isn't remembering answers. It's understanding principles deeply enough to apply them anywhere. A physics professor once told his class, "If you memorize the formulas, you will fail. If you understand the concepts, you will succeed." This philosophy explains something fascinating. Many top professors allow open book exams. Students can bring notes, textbooks, even the internet. Because the test isn't about information, it's about reasoning. And reasoning only works if your mental models are correct. Which brings us back to the beginning. The reason elite universities teach students to forget first is because bad mental models destroy reasoning. Wrong frameworks produce wrong conclusions. So the entire training process looks like this. First, break the illusion of knowledge. Second, remove faulty assumptions. Third, rebuild concepts from first principles. Fourth, introduce desirable difficulty. Fifth, compress knowledge into mental frameworks. Sixth, Train thinking instead of memorization. It's brutal, uncomfortable, and incredibly effective. Most education systems skip these steps. They prioritize information delivery, not cognitive restructuring, which is why students graduate with thousands of facts, but struggle to solve real problems. Elite institutions understand something most schools ignore. Learning is not accumulation. It's transformation. You don't become smarter by adding more knowledge. You become smarter by upgrading how your brain processes it. But here's the final problem. Even if you understand all of this, your brain still fights the process. It prefers comfort, easy review, passive studying, because struggle feels inefficient. But the fastest learners in the world know the truth. If studying feels easy, you're probably not learning. And once you realize that, everything about how you study will change. That's why in the next video, we're breaking down the exact cognitive system elite performers use to install knowledge permanently, using active recall, spaced repetition, and something called the memory compression loop. Because once you master that system, learning stops being slow and starts feeling almost unfair.